I'm just getting it live on YouTube. It's live on Facebook. I'm going to share it in a moment on a couple of other places, and then we will roll.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Okay, good evening, Linda. Good evening, Margot and Chagai. Good evening, Jim. Good evening, Ruth. Okay, we're live there. I'm just going to share it in one more place, and then we are gegangen. Special guest tonight, Yellowstone Ranger joining us here tonight. Rachel's with us tonight, and Chaya's with us tonight. And Mendel finally made it back after he's geschleppte his shyness till he came. But we're glad everyone's back, and we are going to have a fantastic. Why isn't it posting? I think I figured out what happened. Okay. So we're going to do the opposite this week. It's original. So give me a second here. I broadcasted it from a different page. So here you know. Like me singing, guys, right? I know you do. There we go. Let's do this one last move, and then we should be good to go. We shall find out. There we go. Post. I don't know why. Something wrong. Let's try this. Oh, Marjorie's coming in. Just mute you guys. Yeah, people, but I'm gonna mute you. There we go. I need to mute someone out. There we go. Yeah. Oh, there we go. Otaze. See if it works. It should work. Very good. Okay. We're live in all locations. I think it's easy being tech support. Who's messaging me? Oh, you like my singing. Oh, good. Ruth, you're on my good side today. Okay, so today is Wednesday. It's the 2nd of Sivan. It's the second day of the month of Sivan. And as you may know, but if you don't, I'm happy to share that this Saturday night, we enter the holiday of Shavuot, of Shavuos, as we Ashkenazim like to refer to it. In English, they call it the Festival of Weeks, or some Christians call it the Festival of Pentecost. So if you're ever trying to explain to a Christian what Shavuos is, and they have no idea what you're talking about, just throw the word Pentecost around, because most of them don't know what that means either, but it makes it sound too professional, and it's fantastic. It's like phylacteries. When they ask you what tefillin is, and you say phylacteries, it sounds like you're saying a word, and they feel like they're clueless. So Shavuos is coming up. It ends up being a 3-day holiday, because when Shabbos precedes 2 days of Yom Tov, so you go from Friday night straight to Saturday. There's no break between Shabbos and Saturday night when Shavuos starts. So it's literally a 72 hours of spiritual and holy bliss, and we celebrate the giving of the Torah after counting the Yom. And what's interesting is that the Medrash Rabbah and Shir HaShirim, the oral tradition that's compiled and shared in the commentary on the book of Song of Songs. You know, King Solomon wrote the incredible book of Song of Songs. If you ever want to read a love book, a good romance novel, except it's not a novel, then Song of Songs is the book you want to visit. And in Shir HaShirim on the Medrash says as follows: Now, why would the Medrash and Shir Hashirim talk about marriage, talk about Sinai? Because it's a love book, and Sinai is when God married the Jewish people. God was the groom, we were the bride. There was a marriage that took place, and because of that marriage, so, and Shir Hashirim, when it talks about love, the example for love is the love between God and the Jewish people. You know, we should only be so lucky that our love with our spouses should be like the love between God and us, and we'd be in really good shape. So the Medrash over there says as follows. It says that as the Jews, that the entire night before the giving of the Torah, the Jews were asleep. And then the Medrash says something fascinating in Hebrew, and I'll translate. It says, Shina shel atzeres areva v'halayla k'tzara. Because the sleep of Atzeres, of the holiday of Shavuos, is very, very pleasant, very, very sweet and delicious. And the night is short. So not only do they sleep the entire night before Shavuos, but the Medrash says this random statement about the type of sleep you can have on Shavuos is really, really a deep, delicious sleep. And it's a short night, which makes sense. I mean, it's the summer, so it's a short night. But then it says that the parushim, the mosquitoes of sorts, different types of bugs and insects that would normally attack you if you were sleeping in the desert that time of year, they didn't bother the Jews while they were sleeping that night. That's what the Medrash says. God came early in the morning, dawn, sunrise, God shows up and he sees his people sleeping on the morning that they're supposed to be getting the Torah. So the Medrash says he had to wake them up. And that's why the verse says in the book of Isaiah, Madua, Basi ve'ein ish karasi ve'ein aina. I showed up and there's nobody home. I called out and nobody answered. I showed up in the morning to give them the Torah. They've been planning on this from when they left Egypt and they're asleep. Oh, someone wants to get in. Eventually you'll be able to do the tech support and I won't have to deal with it. So God shows up. He's been prepping them from when they left Egypt for this moment. And what ends up happening? They're asleep. And that's why there's a custom, the Magen Avram and Halacha says that that's why there's a custom that on the night of Shavuos, which this year corresponds to Saturday night, many, many Jews have the custom to stay up all night studying Torah to make up for the grave mistake of sleeping the night before Shavuot, the night before they got the Torah. So the goal is not to stay up and bullshit and talk. Many Jews have taken on that custom. Defeats the whole purpose. You might as well go to sleep. At least when you sleep, you're not being a destructive force. If you spend the whole night gossiping or talking sports, no one needs you to be up. You're not rectifying for anything, including the Rangers. That's the tradition. But every story in Torah has a lesson for us, especially when the Torah kind of intimates that something wrong took place here, right? We know that if you look in the book of Genesis and Bereshis, when Noah's talking about the kosher animals versus unkosher animals that are going into the ark, into the teva for the great flood, that he's so careful, the Torah is so careful not to use the word impure. The Torah will say in Hebrew, einenu tahora, that is not pure, instead of saying one word, which is tmeya, which means impure. We're so careful about the words that we use, and yet here the Medrash has no problem telling us this very sad reality, this very demoralizing reality that the Jews were fast asleep the night of the giving of the Torah. What is the lesson for us to garner from that? What are we meant to learn from that? And why would the Torah share with us that information? And I mean, you could take the very basics and say, well, the Torah just wants to tell us to stay up on Shavuos night, so it has to tell us why we have to stay up on Shavuos night. But the Torah could have just said, by the way, the Jews were sleeping, and we have to make up for it by staying up. The fact that it went into all the details and said things like the sleep of Shavuos is pleasant, is very sweet, and the night is short, and that the mosquitoes didn't bite them, it means that there's something very deep here that the Torah is trying to convey to us and how we need to approach life as a Jew that wants to adhere to the Torah's values. What does that mean? So the talk that I share with you tonight is almost verbatim from a talk that the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe of blessed memory, shared on Shavuos, 1962. So 1962, at the Farbrengen on Shavuos, the Rebbe addressed this question and really gave a an incredible interpretation on Shavuos, but even more so, an incredible lesson of what are the values that a Jew should look for. Because we live in a world where values are thrown around all day. People have values that are made up. It's not really a value. They make up a value. It's not a God-given value. It's just their own values, which is okay. You can make up whatever you want. Just don't blame it on God. God gives us values and says, listen, if you want to know how I think you should live your life and what foundations you should have in your life, I'm going to give you the information. And so we know that when the Jews heard, right, when they were leaving Egypt and they heard that in 50 days, they're going to arrive at Sinai and that they're going to have the opportunity to serve God on the mountain, they got an incredible yearning to get the Torah. So what they started doing, they started counting days. They were so excited. They started counting. Oh my gosh, in 50 days, we're going to reach this pinnacle, this moment where God is going to give us, after hundreds of years in Egyptian, not just bondage, not just slavery, but Egyptian confusion and a loss of knowing morality versus immorality, ethics versus unethical behavior, right? You live in such a world of confusion that at a certain point you start forgetting what is right and wrong, which, by the way, is the goal of a lot of the people that share these crazy ideas. They're hoping at a certain point you're just going to give up fighting because you can't keep track of all the craziness. So the Jews are leaving Egypt after so much harsh slavery and confusion. They find out they're going to have a Torah. They start counting the days, and that's where the whole Sfirat to Omer, counting the Omer. So for 7 weeks, they're counting. Now think of the Jews back then in the desert. They're counting for 7 weeks for this moment. And then the night before, they decide to go to sleep. Wouldn't that be like, you finally got there? You've been counting 49 days. Tomorrow is day 50. It's all going down, right? Even today, when we have something exciting, we can't sleep the night before. We're excited. We're fidgety. Here, they finally got to the moment, and they went to take a nap and a deep sleep. And the Medrash says, oh, by the way, it was a fantastic sleep because the sleeping of Shavuos is unbeatable. Furthermore, right, when they counted the 49 days, yes, sure, they counted because it was exciting, but it also represented a spiritual journey. What was the spiritual journey? We know when the Jews left Egypt, they were on the 49th level of impurity. And then they counted 49 days because in Judaism, there's Nun Shari Bina. In Jewish mysticism, it's explained in various places, but in the Zohar and other places, it talks about the 50 gates of understanding. There's 50 layers of understanding the depth of Judaism. And the Jews in this 49 days of counting, not only were they actually counting days, but they were going through a refinement process that was bringing them closer. Every day they were opening another gate of understanding. And it says, by the way, that on day 50, God gifted them, because you can't earn level 50. It's like one of these games, you get to 49 and then you're gifted the highest level, because this is not a game. You do 49, you can reach 49 with your own service, your own character refinement, your own introspection and tshuva, and journey to being a better human being and a better Jew. And then they reach 49, and on day 50, God's going to give them 50. And that night, when they finally they get to level 50, or they're about to hit 50, they go for a nap, a deep sleep. So much so that in the morning, when God shows up to give them a Torah, he gives a little peek onto the camp of Israel, and they're all out cold. Oh, by the way, there was no mosquitoes. What do you mean no mosquitoes? I mean, why is that a piece of information? Right? They didn't go to sleep by mistake. You can't say they went to sleep and they simply, they went to sleep because they were counting for this moment. This was not oh my gosh, I'm so tired, I'm knocked out, I'm going to fall asleep. It had to be a deliberate decision. And the biggest proof of that, why would the Medrash tell us that there was no mosquito bites? Unless they earned not having the mosquito bites. There was something about that night, right? Anyone that's ever gone camping, and by the way, even if you haven't gone camping, all you got to do is take a hike over by Three Forks, where the Jefferson meets over there with the other rivers, and you'll find out what the summer mosquitoes look like. I've never hung out in the Sinai desert, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm sure our ranger can tell us all about the fun things that they get to be bitten by in the park. That being said, the Torah wants us to know that these sleepy Jews who went to sleep the night before they were supposed to get the greatest gift that humanity has ever received from God, that they were so deserving that the mosquitoes didn't bite them miraculously. Why would we need to know that unless there's something very deep about their going to? In other words, here's the key. You can be wrong and yet at the same time, your intentions were 100% in the right place. So sometimes you'll hear me sit in this seat at this class and say, no one cares about your intentions. If you didn't get the job done, you're lost, right? The path to hell is paved with good intentions. That's one side of Judaism, right? It's all about getting the job done. You never heard that one?
It doesn't get easier to listen.
Oh, very good. But there's another side to that, which is we need to understand that God understands that when there is the intention, when a person does do all the effort, Chavi's sister, one of her sisters 1 year, counted the entire Omer. And when she reached day 49, she realized she was 1 day off. It was still, Shavuos is not the next day. Oh. Imagine, she did the whole thing. So you want to tell me that God looks at that person and says, oh, you're going to hell? No, right? You did it all right. You simply had a human error. Humans make mistakes. But over here with the sleeping, the night of Sinai, the night of the giving of the Torah, it seems like they did it deliberately. And we need to, so much so that God felt like they were worthy of not having mosquitoes bite them, right? It's a pleasant sleep. So yet if that's the case, why are we paying for it till today that we have to stay up and study Torah to rectify? What are we rectifying? So in order to understand what we're rectifying, we have to understand why it was a good thing. And so the explanation is based on something the founder of Chabad Hasidism in his magnum opus, the Tanya. For those of you that have been around a while, know that Chavi gives an incredible women's class on Tanya. But in chapter 37 of Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says something foundational, and that is, no matter how high a neshama, a soul that's in a physical body can attain, no matter what level of spirituality they can attain, it doesn't come close to the dveikus, to the bond, to the strongest bond that exists with the soul on high before it comes into a body. So yes, we have a lot to accomplish in this world, but as far as spiritual ecstasy, if you wish, or holy bond with your creator, when the soul is in heaven before it descends into a body, it has the opportunity to bond and connect on a much higher level. Now, when a person goes to sleep, let's take that idea a step further. When a person goes to sleep, most of their soul leaves their body. That's what sleep is. It's the 60th of death, right? The Zohar says that sleeping is the only thing that's left in your body when you sleep is kista de chayusa, which is a ray of life. That's why during sleep, a lot of prayer, look at the things we dream during our sleep. Look at the things we're capable of doing during our sleep. Right now they've discovered 2,000 years after the Zohar, 1,800 years, that there's this thing called sleep apnea. And literally, when you go to sleep, you could literally die in your sleep just from not breathing properly. The Talmud says this, and the Zohar says this almost 2,000 years ago, that sleep is a form of death. We're blessed enough that in the morning it comes back to life. But sleep has a touch of death there, meaning an out-of-body experience. Let's use a better term than death. An out-of-body experience, because the soul, a big chunk of the soul goes up to heaven at night. Therefore, if you want to tap into spirituality, sleep is not a bad option. And what I mean by that is it's known, it says this in many places, both in the revealed parts of the Torah, in the exoteric parts of the Torah, as well as the mystical or esoteric parts of the Torah, that there are people that spend their entire day studying Torah and then they'll go to sleep at night. And when they wake up in the morning, they'll wake up with a new, novel interpretation or understanding of the things that they were learning, or they'll find an answer to a question they couldn't find during the day, they'll get it at night. Why? Because their body and soul have sort of the separation at night. There's this out-of-body experience. The soul is able to tap into spirituality that it wasn't able to tap into while it was awake. Sleep is a very powerful thing, not just because it gives you rest, but because you're having this spiritual experience. So if you take that into consideration, the Jews finally hit level 49. And their thirst and their yearning and their bond with godliness was so high at that time. They wanted more. And they figured the only way to tap into more was to go to sleep. Because the most a human being can do, except for dying, which is prohibited, you don't want to be like Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, who went overboard and died in the process. It's not a Jewish thing. Suicide for the sake of spirituality, or euthanasia for the sake of spirituality, is not a Jewish concept. But they wanted to get close. You're on level 49. Tomorrow you're going to get level 50. You're going to be gifted this incredible thing. What if we went to sleep tonight and we had this incredible out-of-body spiritual experience that will uplift us even to a greater spiritual realm than we're at until now? Says the Medrash, their intentions were really good. You got to give these Jews credit for wanting the right thing, meaning for wanting spirituality, but they went about it the wrong way. So when the Medrash says the night is short, you know what the Medrash, short, literally it means it's a summer or late spring night and it's short, but what it means deeper is that the night, the darkness was short, meaning they reached such a high level of spirituality, such a high level of brightness and light, that darkness became a very minor thing for them. The concealment of godliness for them was minimized. So they slept. It was a pleasant sleep. They were trying to tap in on Shavuos, on this night of great godly gift. They were trying to tap into something super spiritual. That's why even the mosquitoes didn't bite them, because the mosquitoes recognized that there was something very deep and spiritual going on here. They backed off. Even the animal kingdom or the insect kingdom realized that it's time to back away. So then where does that leave us? What's the big question? Why do we have to rectify for that? Why are we spending 3,300 years staying up at night to rectify for such a great intention? They had such great intentions. They actually even did a good, they went to sleep. They wanted to tap into spirituality, and we have to stay up now to make up for it. It's not hard enough in Montana to stay up to make Kiddush at 10:15 at night on Saturday night. Then when I'm done all that and I feel, no, I shouldn't mention it out loud. Yes, it's going to be late. And then I should stay up all night and make believe I'm capable of studying Torah? What am I rectifying for? So the Rebbe said in this talk was that we're rectifying is that they missed the point. You could do everything right and just go a little bit that way and you missed the whole point. They were trying to tap into spirituality. They were trying to reach, the greatest holiness that a Jew can reach, except what they forgot for a moment, and God taught them the hard way, was that the greatest holiness a Jew can achieve is interacting with the world, not running away from it, not seeking out-of-body ecstasy experience. Chavi's grandfather has a book called, of course I won't see it when I want to see it, something mysticism. Professor Bloch, Irving Bloch, he was a professor for Aristotelian philosophy and a big chassid, and he wrote in his book about a near-death experience that he experienced. The power of a near-death experience. It's a real thing. You're not supposed to choose a near-death experience in order to figure that out. And so with the Jews' mistake, their mistake was not that they wanted spirituality, that they thought that the greatest thing that they can accomplish is to sort of get out of the body, instead of saying, wow, the greatest thing I could accomplish is bring spirituality to the body. The purpose of it all is right here, right in this world. The more physical, the more coarse, the more materialistic. When you bring godliness and reveal godliness in that reality, you're revealing God's essence. It's not about the light. It's about the essence. Light is cool, right? We all love light. But it's all about our own benefit. It's all about our own selfishness. If we want to get to the essence and get the actual job done for which we were created, and that's the foundational idea I was talking about, is that so often we can get carried away with thinking, what does spirituality mean? Ooh, let me go hiking in a glacier. I could do Many Glacier, or I could do Going to the Sun, or I could hike up to Roosevelt Tower, or if I could just drive the Beartooth Highway, oh my gosh, I'll feel God, I'll be right there. You can feel really good doing that, by the way, and I felt good doing every one of those things. It feels really good and it actually looks beautiful, and it's a great way to see godliness. But seeing godliness and being godly are two separate things. When you look at that, you see what God is doing or what God created. Where do you fit into the picture? What are you going to be doing to bring the godliness to the forefront? And that involves us in a physical body doing what we have to do. And it really answers a very fundamental question. And that's where a lot of people, we suffer in our world amongst the many. It's not the worst thing our world suffers from, it's just one of them. With this interfaith Baba Maisa. The interfaith grandma tale, which is that we're all the same, we all want the same thing, and we should all get along. I agree on the last part. We should all get along. There's no reason why anyone should ever disdain or mistreat another human being because of a different faith. That's a horrific thing. Religion was never meant to divide people. Torah certainly doesn't want us to be divided. But at the same time, it's not the same thing. If you get to the depth of all different religions, they all represent something else. Every religion has their own ideas. I'm not an expert in all of them, just barely an expert on ours. But the message of our Torah is, you don't run away from the darkness. You look at the world and say, oh my gosh, it's so dark, it's so chaotic, it's so crazy. The darkness is too much. The mosquitoes are going to come bite me. So I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to distance myself from the physical world. I'm going to take a nap and try to have an out-of-body experience. Stay away from the world. Let me hide in my cocoon. Let me hide in my bubble. Let me hide in my ghetto. Let me find the Jewish ghetto and I'll hide there. A lot of Jews want to do that. Actually, I spent Shabbos last week in Monsey, New York. It's a beautiful Jewish ghetto. I walked no jokes, every 50 feet, there was another shul. And they made me feel very welcome. But you're not encountering the darkness. You're not staring the darkness in the face and saying, ooh, let me change that. You're having fun, spiritual ecstasy, but the ultimate is to create that dwelling place for God in the world and in the darkness and in the places that are tough. And I don't mean just Montana. I don't care if you can live in Monsey, by the way. You can live there. And you can find the opportunities to brighten and to ignite and to illuminate. And so we stay up on Shavuos, not because the Jews were sinful, but because they were misguided. And we want to make a statement every year that we're going to stay up and study Torah. We're not going to sleep because we know that the ultimate way to reach spirituality is not by leaving the physical body and going to sleep, but by staying up and interacting with the real world, with the physical world, with the materialistic world, with the harsh world. I don't want to sugarcoat it. The world out there is harsh. And if God forbid you ever check the news, which I say this almost every second week, watching the news or reading the news is a very dangerous activity. And it hasn't always been, but it is in the last 10 years. It's just horrific for your health, right? We're all experts on geopolitics. We're experts on diseases. We're experts on monkeypox. We're busy all day. They freak us out. Every day there's another thing to freak us out about. That's not what Jews are supposed to do. We have a job to do. There's a world to brighten. There's a world that seeks and is desperate for authenticity and illumination. It wants values. And Shavuos is a reminder that the entire Torah that God gave us is not just so that we can walk around saying, ooh, wow, I'm the chosen people. Chosen for what? Chosen so you could say you're chosen? Sorry, it's not Judaism. Chosen to be a light unto the world? Go for it. You should be so lucky to live up to that chosenness. We are. It says we are Mamlechas Kohanim B'Goy Kodesh. We are a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. We have to live up to that. And when we do, we come to this incredible recognition that really shifts it's a paradigm shift. That the world is not the enemy. The world is simply waiting for us to get out there and do our part to rectify for the Jews' mistake of thinking we need to run away from it and come into the world head on and say, you know what? I can and I will take you on. I will make the world bright. I will reveal the beauty embedded within creation. And when I'm done doing that, and when we're all done doing that, we will merit the ultimate time, right? According to one interpretation, at Sinai, God didn't marry us. He got engaged. The wedding will be when Mashiach comes. So whether it was a wedding or an engagement party, and whether Mashiach will be the wedding or the Sheva Brachas, I think we could have the arguments a different time. The bottom line is we should merit a time when the world, the utopian era we yearn for, will not only be dropped on us, but will come about through us with the coming of Mashiach. And this Shavuos, instead of staying up in Bozeman, we'll be sitting in Yerushalayim or HaKodesh. I saw some pictures this week from Yom Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem Day, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to get on that plane. They really need to start a direct flight from Bozeman to Tel Aviv. You think there's enough clientele? But merit,
Christians to go.
Even if every Christian in Montana went to Israel, wouldn't be enough of the airline to produce a flight.
We're not enough?
No, evidently not. And so we will merit to celebrate Shavuos. I celebrated Shavuos once in Yerushalayim. I was 16 years old in yeshiva, 1998. My cousins came from New York to Yerushalayim, so I joined them. And there was nothing like it. We stayed up all night, and at 4:30 in the morning, we marched to the Kotel, to the Western Wall. We did the morning services, and by 8 a.m., we were done services, and we were already eating cheesecake and blintzes. And I'm still dealing with it till today. But it was an incredible thing to watch tens of thousands of Jews walking to and from the Kotel Shavuos morning. May it be Hashem's will that we get to do that again this year. I love our Bozeman shul. I wouldn't give it up for anything except there's one thing I'm happy to give it up for, the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. That's the only thing I'm giving it up for. Maybe speaking in our days, Amen. Have a wonderful Shavuos. And as the previous Rebbe, reiterated by the Rebbe, used to always bless before Shavuos, Kabbalas HaTorah, the Simcha Uvaprimius. You shall receive the Torah with joy and inwardness, not superficially, with deep inwardness and a lot of joy. And if you're in the Bozeman area, sushi, cheesecake, and 10 Commandments, Sunday at 11 o'clock. And if you're not in Bozeman, by the way, it's still Wednesday night. You can catch a flight tomorrow or Friday. Come on over. We'd love to see you. We'd love to host you. And God willing, we will see you back here next Wednesday. V'simcha v'tuv levav, with joy and gladdened hearts. L'chaim, afreilich and yontif, and sei gesund. We'll see you later.
Maybe a near-death experience.
You have to read the book. He wrote about it.
Who was the Zoom user?
Huh?
Who was the scam?
Who was what?
Who was the Zoom user that wasn't named?
I don't know. Someone came on.
What was
Anyone on the Zoom have something to say?